How do we manage the protein transition? Which food components can provably boost your immune system? What's the best way to validate health claims for food and food components? Listen to our food and health experts discuss the biggest questions facing the food, nutraceutical, and food ingredient industries today. Welcome to NIZO Talks Food and Health.
Consumer demand for healthier products continues to grow. Kerensa Broersen, Associate Professor at University of Twente and Project Leader Advanced Analytics at NIZO, explains why careful product design from an early stage is key to develop a successful healthy product, getting it to the market quickly. Consumer demand for healthy products, including those containing very specific health ingredients, is really growing. Taking all aspects along at the early stage of development is very important. Today I'll be talking to Kerensa Broersen. She's Associate Professor at University of Twente and Project Leader Advanced Analytics at NIZO. Kerensa, welcome.
Thank you.
First question, what types of, let's say, added health benefits do consumers today want from food products?
Yeah, well, there's quite a wealth of health benefits at the moment actually being pursued, but the one very general one is actually healthy aging related. So think about bone health or retention of muscle strength, but also brain or cardiac health. But also if you think about the digestive tract, for example, digestion and gut health, that's very importantly addressed at this moment in all these kind of health-based products.
And if you consider these products, what actually do food manufacturers need to consider when they are developing new products that, let's say, want to enter the health-conscious market?
Manufacturers often consider, first of all, the ingredients of importance. So think about the kind of bacterial strains you may want to add when you think about a probiotic product. Think about prebiotic compounds you want to add, but also protein health. Essential amino acids in proteins, protein quality and composition, and so those are all things that manufacturers consider. Also, the effect of processing conditions may impact very importantly how these ingredients in the end how they behave in these products. So, for example, if you look at processing. So if you think about different types of dairy products, yogurts and milk products that have been processed in different ways, we already know when you look at healthy volunteers, for example, that the amount of essential amino acids taken up by the gut and into the bloodstream, that is very much affected by the way products are processed. So these kind of things really go hand in hand when you consider these kind of products.
So this is, let's say, towards products and towards the ingredients which have the health effect. But why is it important, or why is it so important to take the product design into account in a very early stage, when you, for example, are adding a prebiotic or a probiotic?
Yeah, that's a good question, and actually it's very important in terms of bringing products to the market in the most cost-effective manner. When you consider that, it's very important to think very early stage about, okay, I have this ingredient that is of interest to us, to a specific health benefit, a specific protein, for example, but how does incorporation into a food matrix, for example, how does it affect the quality or the intended health benefit of my ingredient? Also, how does the digestive system affect this? You can do all sorts of assays to look at that, for example. How do my processing conditions, how does that affect the health benefits of my specific ingredient or product? And if you think about all these challenges and ideas at a very early stage, you may actually prevent going down into very expensive sort of challenges that may hamper incorporation in the market.
Well, looking at those early stage things, what tools are available to streamline the design of products with health benefits?
Yeah, well, lately actually there's quite a wealth of in vitro models that have been developed to do this. Think about high throughput screening models. At NIZO we have, for example, the microcolon model in which we culture specific bacterial strains of the digestive tract. And that really helps us to do high throughput screening of possible compounds with health benefits and without turning into clinical trials right away. You can also think about, we have an in vitro digestion model in which we mimic very much the components of the digestive tract. So for example, the effect of the oral cavity, the digestive system in itself. So for example, gastric digestion as well as the intestinal compartments and their influence on protein structure or other compounds. Because under those conditions, proteins are exposed to, for example, to different pHs, to different proteases, which may affect the generation, for example, of bioactive peptides. So those we have available here, but also more generally. There's also other types of assays that you may want to use, analytical assays, there's bioinformatic assays, and those collectively are very important and very supportive models actually where you go, for example, into clinical trials. They pave the way into helping you select, for example, for the most promising ingredients. But also after clinical trials, actually, it may sometimes be of interest to turn to in vitro models. For example, where you have unexpected results. Sometimes you run into data that you may not necessarily directly understand based on clinical trial outcomes. Think about the example I've given before about the different dairy products and their effect on essential amino acid composition and uptake. When you don't do in vitro assays afterwards, you may not understand this, but we already know that from using such in vitro assays that, for example, the protein matrix is very much affected by differences in pH and heat processing, which in turn affects liberation of essential amino acids from these proteins.
So you talked about a lot of these in vitro models that are useful. But is it also possible to combine them, and what could be gained by that?
Yeah, traditionally most of these assays have been used as standalone assays. So think about the microcolon model, but also in vitro digestion models. But we now more and more realize that if you combine them, that actually gives even more intensive insight or fundamental insight into what actually happens. So, for example, think about combining. There's a lot of interest at this moment into how do specific food ingredients affect the immunological system? And in that case, you can think about combining in vitro digestion with, for example, exposure of the digestates to immune cells to look at the immune response or perhaps an immune regulating effect of these compounds. So combining them is definitely a very powerful way of getting a lot of insight prior to turning to clinical trials.
So if we look at the drivers for successful product design, what are the main drivers to do so to get let's say a shorter time to market?
We realize now that it's mostly if you make the process and product development as well as ingredient selection go hand in hand. So from a very early stage in the process, think about, what are my requirements of my specific ingredients? For example, I want them to be stable for a long time. I want them to release bioactive peptide X, Y, or Z. Those things are important to take into consideration, as well as the food matrix. So what do I incorporate it into? What kind of processing conditions do I need to add? Do I want to add pre or probiotics prior to heating or afterwards? And by actually collectively looking at those things from a very early stage and actually defining them well, develop the process as you go, having those requirements in mind. You may reduce actually halfway through realization of that things turn out very expensive or even being an insurmountable problem.
So I think what you're describing is, let's say, a sort of holistic approach from the start is very important.
Yeah.
To combine all these insights, and the insights can be gotten by combining assays which are nowadays available to help, let's say, entering the market soon, but also prevent early failure or late failure, actually. Okay, Kerensa, thank you very much for this insightful information. This was NIZO Talks Food and Health, and if you want to know more, please check out our website.
Thanks for your attention. If you enjoyed it, please check out our other episodes via our website and other platforms like Spotify, Apple iTunes, and YouTube. Subscribe through your regular podcast app to make sure you never miss an episode.